What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Eagles Monday Recap. I'm Alex Miller, joined always by Travis Brown. Texas A&M hosting Alabama this week, of course. Heard from Jimbo Fisher and 5 players, I think, today. We had a pretty steady rotation going through this morning over there at Kyle Field.
Yeah, 4 players.
4 players.
Yeah.
Okay. My math is bad. That's why I'm a journalist.
Yeah, we had Max Wright, we had Demetrius Crownover, we had McKinley Jackson, and we had Anaya Smith.
Well, it's all coach speak. They're going to say any game is just another game. But here's the deal, Travis. This is not just some other game. A&M and Alabama, they're duking it out at Kyle Field this weekend for outright first place in the SEC West, a position that I don't know if many people would have put A&M in at this point of the season, especially with LSU in the division.
Yeah, I mean, that's a question that I asked of all the players today is, do they sense how wide open the SEC West is this year? Because it's wide open. And really, the biggest test of this is going to be this weekend in Kyle Field. A&M and Alabama are the only 2 SEC West teams that haven't suffered a conference loss yet. And so the winner of this is in the driver's seat for the West. That's not saying that it's the end-all, be-all, because there's still a lot of time to play. And as the players rightly responded, anybody can beat anybody on any given field. I mean, look at Florida and Tennessee 2 weeks ago, and then Florida and Kentucky this last week. It's crazy. With the whole SEC is crazy, and Georgia and Auburn. I mean, there's arguments that people are already talking about. Will the SEC even get a team into the college football playoff? That's way down the line and a little bit hyperbolic, but it is an interesting SEC. It's probably been one of the most fun SEC seasons that I've been a part of covering, because there isn't necessarily that runaway winner or runaway team that is going to be in the driver's seat the whole time. But yeah, this game very well could be the de facto SEC West championship game. Should A&M win this and run the table, or Alabama win this and run the table? And,
hearing from Anaya Smith, and we'll get to him a little more here in a second, he said when his brother played at Alabama, there was no question. Alabama was either number 1 or number 2. There was no doubt about it. Well, Alabama's 12 right now? 11. They're outside the top 10. The point is they're not even in the top 10. And looking back at this A&M Alabama game, if you look back at the last 4 years, the spread on this matchup has always been Alabama 17 or more. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's like, I think I heard it's somewhere between 2.5 and 4. I mean, it's almost a pick'em game. Mm-hmm. And I think, one, with all due respect to Alabama and what they've accomplished, it shows that the Crimson Tide are not as invincible as they have been in recent years. And not only that, A&M's actually got a legit shot to probably go in and go and win this game.
I mean, this is Alabama pre-Tua. This is Alabama pre-Lane Kiffin as offensive coordinator. This is Alabama is out there playing really good defense.
Yes.
And don't really have a quarterback or a whole lot of offense to speak of per se. Jaden Milroe has settled in to be the starter. They've been able to pick some stuff up against a not very good Mississippi State team, but the offensive line certainly hasn't helped Jaden Milroe out very much. And so yeah, I mean, if you think stereotypical Alabama pre-Lane Kiffin, where it's going to be they're going to play lights out defense and figure it out on offense, that's kind of what this Alabama team is at its best.
Yeah, Jimbo was asked about that today. Alabama, they've given up 20, 22 sacks on the season. And, A&M, its pass rush has really come on the last 2 games in particular. And, Jimbo said that statistic, I think Alabama's ranked 120th in the nation.
123rd in sacks allowed. That's what I was looking up here.
Yeah.
They're 13th in the SEC. They're averaging 4 sacks a game.
The point is there are shots to be taken at Jalen Milroe with the holes that the offensive line is giving opponents for Alabama. But Jimbo said it is a little misleading because a guy like Milroe, we know he likes to run, he's going to run, and he gets out of it a little bit, but the fact still stands that, I mean, people are getting pressure on Alabama quarterbacks, and that has not really been the case in recent years.
I get what Jimbo's saying, but also that's not necessarily a great definition of the statistical category of a sack, because once Jaden Milroe becomes a runner and he's tackled, that's just a tackle for loss.
Yeah,
that's not a sack. Point. So I get what he's trying to say there and not hype it up too much, but I think that is a statistical category to look at. A&M is second in the country in team sacks. They're averaging 4 sacks a game.
Which is just crazy, by the way,
right.
to think about. If you would have told me 3 weeks ago that A&M was going to be number 2 in the country in sacks going into this game, I would have been like, what happened? Did the other team's offensive lines just like decide to play their second strings? Like, I mean, with all due respect to A&M, they were not getting pressure on the quarterback.
I was surprised against what they were able to do against Arkansas. I wasn't surprised as much against Auburn. Auburn fair. Offensive line was not good. I mean, they proved to be better against Georgia, but they were not good.
That's a fair point.
Against A&M, but that's still 14 sacks in 2 games for A&M.
Right. I think what they did against Arkansas was really impressive. I mean, Walter Nolan and Shamar Turner in particular have been playing really well the last 2 weeks.
And Edrin Cooper. I was just looking at these stats
right.
here. Edrin Cooper has he's averaging 0.8 sacks a game. Shamar Turner's 0.7. Walter Nolan's 0.5. That's 24th, 44th, and 98th in the country, 3rd, 6th, and 14th in the conference. Edrin Cooper is actually kind of leading that charge.
Yeah, and I think that the elevated play of the defensive line is real. And now that they're real, I mean, give credit to DJ Durkin. I mean, he has really dialed it up the last couple weeks, and the way that the defensive line has played to draw some double teams and provide some open lanes for those blitzing linebackers, or even a guy like Bryce Anderson who got in there, tipped the ball on the Chris Russell pick 6. I mean, it has been a collaborative effort where, you know, this was stuff that we were seeing when Mike Elko was defensive coordinator for A&M, and now the Aggies are really starting to get the wheels turning on that side of the ball. You know, if they can start cleaning some stuff up on offense and not leave some points out on the board, I mean, A&M's going to be able to contend in any game that they're playing in.
The defense is leading the charge, which is not at all what we were going to think after the Miami game. No. That was just a huge defensive bust all the way around. But yeah, you know, the offense did enough. The defense is outstanding, and we haven't really had to necessarily look and grade A&M's defensive secondary because the pass rush has been so good, and they've been able to, as Jimbo said, affect the quarterback through the pass rush in the last 2 games. I do think this game will be a little bit different because of what Jaden Milroe can do running around, and because of the fact that he can throw the ball probably better than any. Well, I would have thought KJ Jefferson would have been a better passer.
He was not, though.
But he was not. A lot of that because of the pressure they were able to put on.
And you got to remember, their stud tight end got knocked out on the first play of the game with that broken collarbone.
That is true. That was his biggest security blanket.
Hit to Arkansas's offensive game plan, probably. But to be fair, Travis, I mean, you look at Alabama's receiving core. I mean, they don't have a Devontae Smith or a Jalen Waddle or a Henry Ruggs or, you know, a Jerry Jeudy type guy. I mean, this is not what we've been seeing from Alabama. But like you said, Milroe's really turned a corner the last couple weeks.
I mean, here's your pulling up PFF. Surprisingly, who is Alex? Who is the highest graded passer in the SEC coming into this week?
Oh gosh,
the grade is 91.
91. Is it Milroe?
It's Max Johnson.
It's Max Johnson.
It's Max
Is
Johnson.
it really?
According to PFF, the best passer in the SEC.
I thought this was going to be a trick question.
Where Jaden Milroe is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Is that
7,
Wegman
8,
number 3?
9, 10. He's 10th at 76.7, but has the best run grade at 88.5. Yeah, Wegman's number 3 on there at a 90.
We knew Wegman was having a good season before he got knocked out for the year. That's not surprising about Milroe's running ability, though. I mean, if you go back to last year's game, Travis, I mean, A&M's pass defense played really well in that game. It was a couple of those scramble lapses that really did the Aggies in and allowed Alabama to extend drives and get some big plays that gave them those critical points to pull out that win.
Well, A&M's run defense was so bad last year.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I'm just curious, kind of, and I know I'm kind of producing on the fly here, but you look at receiving grades. A&M has Aniyah Smith is about 8th in here. He's at a 79. You have Evan Stewart at a 76. Jermaine Burton is the highest rated Alabama overall rank 146.
And I don't think he played last week against Mississippi State.
Correct. And then beyond him, you're going down to Isaiah Bond, and he's the 243rd in the country at wide receiver. Going back, Aniyah Smith is 56th in the country. That wide receiving core isn't necessarily producing at a high rate, and they don't necessarily have a huge passing threat with Milroe. I really think the biggest matchup here is what we talked about. It's going to be A&M's pass rush versus Alabama's offensive line / just pass blocking as a whole. Are they going to be able to stop? Because right now, I don't know who is going to stop A&M. If sometimes you go into games and it's a bad matchup, and yeah, a team puts up big numbers, but you're like, that was just a bad matchup. That's not indicative of who this team is. If A&M can prove that 7 sacks a game, a four sack average is who they really are, there's no reason why they shouldn't be the best team in the West, because that being able to get that kind of pressure on the quarterback affects so much that there's no reason why they shouldn't win the West.
Hearing from Aniyah Smith, he was really the only player it sounded like that this game is a little bit different. And, his family has some history. His older brother played at Alabama, and, Travis, just shed a little light on what Aniyah had to say about that and a little bit of the backstory there.
Well, before I do that, there is something. Before I do that, there's a lot of players that have a lot of history. You can look at Max Wright has played in so many of these games because he's been here for so long. He was here for the 2021 game where they won here at Kyle Field. And while he wouldn't, of course, the party line is it's one game at a time, nameless, faceless opponents, whatever. He did go into talking about how intense the atmosphere was in Kyle Field for that game. And by transitive property, saying how much it means to the fan base, saying how much more important the game is. You can take that. There's McKinley Jackson, who was recruited by Alabama from Alabama, decided to come to Texas A&M. And then you have Aniyah Smith. And here, the story behind Aniyah Smith's older brother, Maurice Smith, started his career at Alabama, decided that he wanted to transfer, according to his family. Once that word got out that he was wanting to transfer, all of his stuff from his locker when he showed up to the team facilities were just sitting outside the locker room, and just kind of for him to pick up, kind of saying he got kicked out, of the program, and him and his family didn't really like how that went. And Aniyah was cognizant. It was younger, but cognizant enough of what was going on that his brother's career and recruitment was something that played a lot into his own recruitment and his own career, even going back to talking to his family about Bobby Petrino now being at A&M. Well, his brother considered Louisville for a long time and was being recruited by Bobby. And Aniyah, as we know, has a big personality. Even some of those conversations during recruiting was taking the phone and asking Bobby Petrino how his brother would be incorporated into that offense and things like that. But you can tell that situation, that episode in his older brother's life is something that stuck with him. And he was, calling Nick Saban by name, saying he knows everything about how that program is run because his brother was in there, and said positive things about how that program was run and what they're going to be expecting on defense. But he did also say that this is personal because it's something that his family didn't appreciate, and is something that has stuck with them since.
Some of Ainias Smith's best games have come against Alabama. You know, when he was a sophomore, he had over 100 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. When they beat Alabama, you know, they had the little pop pass to him there in that second quarter that kind of extended the lead. And then, of course, he caught the game-tying touchdown in the fourth quarter on that little wheel route. I mean, Zach Calzada put it right in the breadbasket. And, you know, didn't get to play in this game last year, of course, because he was out for the season with that broken leg. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like this is one that Ainias has had circled for a little bit at least.
Yeah, it's one that I would be surprised if a lot of the players didn't. And anybody who's watched or kept an eye on, and this was kind of goes back to that initial question, gone back and looked at the state of the SEC West. This game means everything, and it could change as the season goes on. But right now, as we sit in the season, this game means everything for the battle for the SEC West. And if A&M can win this game, they are in the driver's seat to go to Atlanta, which is not something you've ever been able to really say about A&M since they've joined the SEC.
Nope. Yeah, and you know. Jimbo, you watch clips of the Pulse and some other stuff. He's been telling. It seems like he's been telling some of the guys in the locker room, you know, change the narrative. If A&M wins this game, the narrative will probably be changed about the trajectory of A&M's season and where the Aggies are going, as you have already mentioned.
Yeah, for sure. It's. I mean, I'm curious about that because it's something we'll never really know. I would think. To mention that to the team or to bring that to their attention does go against the whole idea of nameless, faceless opponents. Every game means, you know, whatever. Because also, if they do lose that game, they're not in the driver's seat anymore, but it is a crazy SEC West. Alabama could lose to Ole Miss, could lose to...
Well, they already beat Ole Miss.
Oh, excuse me, LSU,
Yeah.
I meant. And
or Tennessee,
and then they're right
or
back
Auburn.
in it. Yeah, it's.
I
don't know if I'd put my money on Auburn.
I don't either, but it's the Iron Bowl.
Who knows? But yeah, so it's just it's the most fun SEC season, like I said, I've been a part of so far because it is absolutely wide open. And this game will mean more than just about any A&M Alabama game since they've joined the SEC. I mean, help me out here. I can't think of any one where they went into the Alabama game with a shot to take over the West lead.
The only one that I really think of was the 2013 game. Well, in 2016,
you're right.
In 2016, they were both undefeated, but it really felt like A&M. I mean, A&M was definitely the underdog. The 2013 game, which was in like week 2 or 3, I mean, it was the first conference game for either team.
Yeah, that's too early.
But it was so hyped up because Alabama was 1, A&M was like 5 or 6. You know, Johnny was coming off his Heisman season.
2016 might have been actually be the best
example.
But I like you said, it wasn't this thing where the spread would be so small. And it'd be so close. This might be the biggest matchup. And point to prove, fans have been lining up for 2 weeks. You went out there last night to kind of check it out a little bit.
Yeah, I went out there at like 11 p.m. You can check theeagle.com tomorrow for my story on just the madness of ticket pull. But I went up to the very front of the line because the rumor was as soon as the Auburn game ended, people were pitching tents in front of the ticket windows on the north side of Kyle Field to, get in line. That was 8 days ago. Like, yeah, that's wild. And so,
someone caught the first person to pitch it. It was like going on during the Auburn game.
Yeah. So the people I talked to, as soon as the game ended, they said they ran back to their car and got some stuff. Like they had it set up within an hour after the final whistle blew. And it was something that they had been Ryder Nielsen, who is a listener of our show. Actually, I was talking to him, and he said that they've been planning this for like a month, and that they devised a spreadsheet with everybody's class schedule so they could take shifts, sitting at the tent, making sure all their stuff was good. I mean, they had 5 tents across the front windows. They had a little inflatable couch. They had drinks and food and all kinds of things. And so when I got there, it's just a madhouse in front of the stadium. But then, at first I went to the left toward the east side, and it went all the way to the 12th man statue. But then you go around the west side, it wrapped around the entire thing all the way down the west side of the stadium to the very, very end, like in around the cove in front of the new indoor football facility. I mean, there were hundreds of tents out there. I mean, people had air mattresses, sleeping bags, hammocks. There were multiple dudes out there just playing Mario Kart, a ton of people with their laptops, trying to get some homework done. There were TVs out there, saw some extension cords, like people had like 5 extension cords reaching like 50 yards to try and get an outlet to plug in their TV. I mean, it was nuts. Just the length and the measures that people were taking to get these tickets. And I mean, yeah, I think that just shows the kind of anticipation and the hype. And, I think for those people, fortunately for them, A&M's won the last 2 games. So this game actually, kind of means something.
Sure.
I mean, imagine if A&M would have lost to Arkansas. Do you think maybe some of those people might have just packed it up and said,
no, because, part of that
sold out.
Well, and part of that experience is just having the ability to go out there and do that with
and
your
the
friends
ridiculousness of
and
it.
setting up a TV and having, Madden tournaments or whatever you do. Just to go back real quick, just to backtrack on our work here a little bit. Alabama opened as 4.5 point favorites. The line's now down to 2.5.
Yeah.
So
so it's a pick'em game.
I'll have to go back and look, but I couldn't remember an A&M Alabama game with that close of a line in that. Now, going back to what you were talking about, we asked Max Wright if this is something, would he go out and camp out for, and he said, yeah, he thinks he's a big A&M fan, and he thinks he would be if he wasn't playing football. He'd go do that. Jimbo says he camps all the time when he's hunting, so camping's not a big deal for him. Would you camp out for 2 weeks?
So I probably would not, because I hate camping, but I would probably be willing to sit there throughout the whole day to do it, or get up at like 3 a.m. and take the night shift.
Yeah.
My freshman year at A&M was the only time I went to a game as a student, and we camped out one time, and I hated it. And we were on the 3rd deck, so my experience was bad.
Yeah.
But my buddies loved it, and they would do it all the time. But that was kind of the big takeaway from all of it, was that, after talking with all those people, no matter what happens on Saturday, they're just going to look back at it on, hey, we had a fun time. We met a ton of people. It was crazy. When are we ever going to get to do this again? And I think that just really embodies how A&M students are with their football fans. I mean, with their football. I mean, it's the largest student section of the country. It's viewed among one of the best, and people go all out to be there for A&M football games.
Yeah, not to take away from what the students are doing, but everybody wants some of those. If you're a sports fan in your college, you want those super college-y experiences. And the only reason why you would need to camp out is if you feel that there is a strong enough demand for tickets that you would need to camp out. And there is. Right. And so I think that that regardless of how big this game was, if there was that demand, which there are sometimes, even when the game isn't this big, they're just looking for the reason to be able to go do this. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not a camper. I quit Boy Scouts I'm a glamper 6 months in because I just don't want to deal with that. But you're right. I'd be the guy who would bring the TV, figure out how to wire everything so everyone could have a a ridiculously entertainment experience.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Stay through the day, and then I'd go sleep at home and then come back for that. So that would be my experience. Hats off to them. Sleeping on concrete sounds like the literal last thing I want to do in my life.
Well, they got to meet Jimbo last night because he went and brought him tacos. I saw photo evidence. Everybody was taking photos with him. So at least there's a little consolation prize for that.
He should have brought the grill out there and maybe just.
Oh yeah, dude, I saw 2 Traeger smokers out there.
Are you kidding? You're kidding me?
No, I'm not. And what I was told was that some dude brought some big projection screen and you could see it up on the wall. Apparently they were playing movies there every night. And during the Arkansas game, they played the game up there and they had some speakers and it looked like they were grilling. So I mean,
that would be really fun. I'd be there.
People were having a good time.
I'd be there.
People were having a good time. We'll see if. Go ahead.
Well, just a couple of housekeeping things. I know Evan Stewart got banged up a couple times in the game. Jimbo Fisher said that he would be available for this weekend.
Yeah.
So that's he looks like he took a pretty big shot on that really ridiculous catch on the sidelines towards the end of the game.
He's taken a couple of he got knocked out of the Miami game and didn't play the next week against Louisiana Monroe. That's twice now he's got knocked out of the game and they reviewed it for targeting and they overturned it.
Mm-hmm.
But still seemed to have some effect on him in the game being able to come back.
And if there's any position group that A&M has that fans should not be worried about, don't get me wrong, Evan Stewart was the second highest rated wide receiver if you want to look at Pro Football Focus that A&M has, and Isaiah Smith was the top one. But if there's a position group not to worry about, it's that one, because they've had guys in and out the whole season and it doesn't seem like anything has really slowed them down.
They're going to need more out of if Evan is limited in any capacity, though, they're going to need more out of Ja'Day Walker. He did not really have a good game on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Dropped a couple passes, wasn't able to haul in a couple of contested balls. One of them questionable. They didn't call it. Might have been pass interference. Either way, hit his hands. You think you probably want to get that. Didn't see a lot of Noah Tom. He played in the game, but he didn't really fill up the stat line a lot. And that's really where Alabama's strength is in their secondary. Their secondary is pretty legit, and Jimbo kind of highlighted that in the press conference today. A&M's gonna need a big game from some of those guys if they're gonna be able to knock off the Tide.
I agree.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of the Monday Recap. Be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage leading up to A&M's game against Alabama this Saturday. We'll see you next week.